Hi, Brandon Monroe here, and you're listening to the Bernie Breakdown. Another big week for NASCAR as all three series heads to Nashville for a chance to hoist one of the sport's most coveted trophies, the Nashville Guitar. I'm Brandon Monroe, and alongside me as always is Mark Chavez, and we got a full slate tonight, so let's just jump right into it, starting off with the Truck Series. Their first race of the weekend on Friday night. Pretty stacked field. No cup, guys, as it is a Dash for Cash race, but we do have one of those swingers, I guess you could say, in Ryan Preece, who happened to win this race last year. Not quite the favorite, definitely somebody I have my eye on. Going through the list, I think there's some pretty good odds here. Who has caught your eye so far, just looking at the early odds for the truck race?
Well, the guy I'd be putting money on if I could would be Zane Smith. Uh, Priest obviously in the conversation for sure. Honestly, didn't pick him just because Priest is your guy. So if you want to pick him, I'll leave him to you. But Zane Smith finished, I believe, fourth in this race last year on a team that is not as good as the team that he's on now. Not an exact replica, but I mean, Dover is probably one of the closer tracks you can get to in terms of comparison. And while they have not, or they do not go to Dover this year, hopefully that is a track that ends up back on the schedule for the Truck Series. But Zane Smith did run pretty well at Dover when they were last year. I think in 2020, I believe he actually
I think he won the race.
won that race. Yeah, he did. Led 50 laps, won that race, finished fourth last year. It's been, I mean, there's a strong argument for a handful of guys, but quite arguably the strongest driver this year. Has the most wins, at least of the series regulars. I think 3 is probably just the most wins of anybody. So that's who I'm going here, Zane Smith plus 500.
Yeah, not bad. Plus 500 for Zane, pretty good. You would have it right, though. I got my eye on Ryan Preece. Plus 700 for this race. I think he's running better in that truck than he did last year in the limited starts that he had. Definitely has come close to winning a couple races. So coming back to a place where they did go to victory lane. The 17 truck won last week with Todd Gilliland. I'll take my chances with Preece. Pretty solid odds for somebody who did win the race last year, but I really like the Zane Smith pick. Normally I always try to find good value even for my favorites. Plus 500 with how Zane's been this year. I can't knock you for taking that.
Yeah, these two guys are my two favorites in this race. Preece obviously won last year and has ran good this year. As you said, are quite arguably better than he did last year. Mm-hmm. But those two are the two guys. I had Preece and I said, nah, Preece is Brandon's guy, and literally changed it to Zane Smith. Just because I like it. I like it. One, it's more fun when we don't pick the same guy. But two, it gives us more to talk about different guys as well.
Yeah, I mean that's like I said, that's a pretty solid plan B if you have to go with something else. Looking at just some of the other guys back here, value wise, anybody sticking out?
No one necessarily is like a slam dunk, but I do quite like Carson Hocevar at plus 1,500. He is that guy in the series that there are other guys that are close to winning either their first race of the year or first race of the season based on performance. Kraus has obviously been up there. Majeski's been up there. But Carson Hocevar has had the most speed near the front and finished. I think he had issues in this race last year. I can't remember. But this year is already just 100%, 100 times different than last year anyway. So really it doesn't even matter for Carson Hocevar. Even with his broken ankle still out there, dominated the Knoxville race while the truck was still running and has ran good in every race, even with a broken ankle. I really thought we were going to see a Brad Keselowski moment from him when he put the car on the pole at Sonoma for a split second before he then put the car on the wall.
Yeah.
Then I was like, well, now they're going to just take him out because now there's no point in it. Right. But he's been really quick this year. And at plus 1,500, I think for a guy that could legitimately go out and win this race, I think that's great value.
So, just going through here, there are two guys that I do have circled potentially as value ones. I'll give you the first one that's not so serious, just because sometimes with NASCAR, the storyline just plays out. It just does. And it would be something if Matt DiBenedetto was able to win this race with his team sponsoring it in Rackley Roofing. So plus 5,000. I wouldn't say that is my slam dunk long shot bet, but just because sometimes the sport they just have a
It
way for
does.
the storylines to work.
It does just seem to happen more than
It really
other
does.
sports.
It really does. So I definitely keep an eye on Matt DiBenedetto at plus 5,000. But the one that I really have circled is Derek Kraus. Was on the pole for this race last year, led 48 laps before he got in a crash, later on in the race. So he's definitely been improving.
He's been hot lately too.
He's been very hot as of late. So that's the guy that I have circled as a legitimate dark horse pick here. Plus 3,000, showed speed here last year. He's coming. I'm sure he wants to win just to punch his ticket, but with Crafton sliding, if he could do a little bit better than Gray, Crafton has like a 10th place race with not a lot of stage points.
Gray, I don't even think is the issue here. Like,
Yeah.
I think personally, I think it's going to end up being Crafton, Kraus, or DiBenedetto. I think it's going to be one of those. Now, Gray as with all year, he's ran top 12 and then has some issue. But even at this point, top 12 would have been enough to maintain his spot 2 months ago.
Yeah, I had the wrong points listed up because he is ahead of Gray right now in the points. Just my points were wrong. So yes, he doesn't even need to really worry about Gray. If Matt Crafton goes in here and has like a 10th place run and only gets like 2 stage points, if Derek Kraus could replicate the speed he had last year before he ended up wrecking out, he's going to have a great points day. And, that's obviously you want to get into the playoffs. You want to make sure you don't lose points. But if you have a chance to win the race, that's obviously the number one way to get in. So he's just got to go out there and do what he did last year other than crashing. That's about it.
One other name I do want to throw out there in terms of value guy, Grant Envinger, 1,500. Finished third in this race last year, led 39 laps, and has been more solid in this last 2-3 months than he was in the first month or two of the year. Had issues at Gateway, but a lot of people did. And outside of that, has finished in the top 11 in every race dating back to Atlanta. So this is a track that he's ran good at last year. They clearly are missing that like race winning speed, but I mean that team is. They definitely seem as a whole organization they're missing a little something. But I mean he's a proven race winner. That team's a proven winner. It wouldn't be shocking if they put it together this weekend.
Yeah, I would. He like I think he mentioned he had a pretty solid race here last year, so it's not going to be shocking if he's able to do something. Let's take a look here at the head-to-head matchups. Only 4 listed so far on DraftKings, since we are a little bit earlier on in the week. Which 2 do you like out of those 4? And I'll try to sell the other 2 that you don't pick.
We might as well just go through all 4 of them.
All right, let's go through all 4.
There's just 4 of them, so I don't going through all 4 of them. You lead it off. Their order's not always the same, so I'll just let you.
Gotcha. First one that I see is Stuart Friesen and Ty Majeski. Friesen's been kind of up and down, but he did run pretty good here last year. I think that was last year. No, wrong race. My computer is really messing with me.
He did finish 5th in this race last year.
All right, so at least I did have that right. For whatever reason, I had the dirt race from last week pulled up there as well. He did run pretty strong here last year. Did lead a couple laps.
To be fair,
to finish 5th.
Majeski did finish 8th last year.
And that's what I was going to get at. Andy was running part-time. So that was like the 5th Thor Sport truck. Obviously not, a lot of reps because he wasn't running full-time. I think it was one of the first races he even ran for him last year. I'm going to go Majeski. It is pretty close because I think Friesen is even running a little bit better right now than he was at this point last year. But Majeski...
I think Friesen's definitely running better than he was at this point last year.
Majeski is... I don't know if he's where Hocevar is in terms of like knocking on the door of the win, but he's pretty close.
Yeah, it's like I feel like Reddick and Hocevar are pretty similar in that they like are at the front a lot. They lead laps, and then something happens, go their way. If I were to compare Majeski to a guy in one of the higher seasons, it'd probably be Sam Mayer.
Mhm.
A lot of speed near the front, top five a lot, but they haven't like led a lot of laps. They haven't shown that race winning speed. They can obviously get there. I mean, this team has won races this year, even not obviously his literal team, but the organization. And he's been getting better as the season goes on. So they could certainly break through. But I agree, he's definitely not quite to that host of our level, but I mean, has been very solid, has top fives in 5 of the last 7 races, and the 2 that he didn't, one was Gateway, where they got caught up in an incident and tried to, in my opinion, pretty craftily repair the deck. Let NASCAR put a end to that, but I appreciate the effort. And
Yes.
Charlotte, where he was running near the front, and then just some bad restarts and the chaos that was the end of that race shoved him down to 13th. So definitely think he's been a little in that time span. Friesen has won a race, but I think Majeski's been a little bit more consistent, shown a little bit more overall speed. I
Mhm.
also lean Majeski here.
All right. So both time Majeskis. I think the next one that I see is John Hunter Nemechek and Zane Smith. So I'll just let you go because you really have nothing
I
to
mean,
say.
I
You're
mean,
locked in.
it's Zane Smith. Right? Zane Smith is the slightly better paying one too, but I mean, this was actually when I first wrote down my notes for this, I didn't realize there were only 4 here. Um, and this was the one I have as my slam dunk one.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
it's
definitely Zane Smith over John Hunter Nemechek.
I'm going that way as well on this one. Zane, I think you bring up a really good point. He ran really good here last year in what was an inferior truck. John Hunter Nemechek started 34th, had problems in qualifying, only got up to 10th. So really wasn't the best of days for him in this race last year. And again, I think Zane's just in a better truck. And I'm going to use this logic for some of my other picks in some of the other series as well. So he finished 4th here last year. John Hunter, not such a great day last year. Granted, he had to start from the back. I'm also going with Zane in this head-to-head matchup. Next up, Ben Rhodes and Chandler Smith. Chandler Smith, another one who had a pretty strong run here last year, leading 48 laps, same as Derek Kraus, ultimately coming home in the 13th position. Ben Rhodes, I don't know about you, but I just kind of get this feeling like they might be slipping back just a
No,
little
I
bit.
was I was 100% going to say that.
Mhm.
Best finish since Bristol Dirt is an eighth at Gateway, and they've had some issues here and there in there, but it's not like in these other races they were all running top 5 and something happened.
Mhm.
They've clearly fallen a step back from where they were at that point. They're very good at getting stage points. That's part of why they're still third in points, not that far back of John Hunter. But since that Bristol Dirt race, no top fives. Best finish was 8th at Gateway. So I was going to say the same exact thing. They seem to have lost some of what they had at the beginning of the year. Um, wouldn't be surprised if they find it at some point, but here I'm going uh, Chandler Smith, who also I feel like hasn't been quite as strong as he was in the beginning of the year. Almost not, but not as much of a decline as I feel like Ben Rhodes has had from that point. I mean, Chandler Smith could have very easily won at Gateway a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
where he
Uh,
probably definitely had the best car and just. I mean, got involved with that incident with Enfinger, had to go to the back and still race his way up to finish third, where he's Corey Haim is pretty lucky that uh, Chandler Smith didn't just dump him.
yeah. I'm also going Chandler Smith here. It's a pretty easy one for me just because I don't want to say I've lost faith in Ben Rhodes, but it's definitely declining. For somebody that's really close to the regular season championship, I almost feel like he's kind of out of it. So I'll take Chandler Smith again. He had a pretty good run here last year. Another driver is sort of like Stuart Friesen, who I feel like is doing better right now than he was at this point last season. So give me him at minus 130 in this head-to-head matchup. For the last one in the truck series, we have Grant Enfinger at even money plus 100 against Corey Haim at minus 130. I'm
I'm gonna
going
let
with the
you go
guy that has
first.
2 wins. I'm going with Corey
Okay.
Heim here.
All
Yeah.
right, I wanted to make sure because just to be different, I'll go with Enfinger.
Hmm.
I mean, and I do think Enfinger can. I would not be shocked at all if he did just beat Corey Haim. Corey Haim does have 2 wins. Was in probably didn't have as good of a truck as Zane Smith at Kansas to get that win there, but he had a very good truck before he started having engine issues there. And has ran solid in other races. Enfinger has too, so I would not be surprised at all if Enfinger finishes better with the better odds, better paying odds. And like I said, his fourth place run last year, I feel comfortable with Enfinger. I don't feel like it's that much of a stretch or a stretch at all, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I
Uh,
tend to agree on that.
of these four, which one is your favorite?
Probably right now, Chandler Smith over Ben Rhodes. That's my favorite. Yeah,
It's a good one.
yeah,
I agree 100%. I was keying up to say the same stuff basically about Ben Rhodes. So
yeah, yeah. No, that's definitely the one. It's just I think Chandler Smith's better right now. Obviously, I
I
wish
think
it was
it
better than -130, but
I think it
I
flies a little bit under the radar just because he is still only 10 back of the championship lead. But when we do predictions again here in a couple weeks, it could change by then. I would not be that hard pressed to not, or it would not be that hard for me to not have Ben Rose in the final four right now.
yeah, yeah. With how things are, trending right now, I don't disagree with that.
So a couple more weeks, I guess only one more truck race for that for things to change. And I'm not dead set one way or another, but he just certainly it is funny. He's ahead of Chandler Smith in points, but I feel like all the other guys have had a lot more issues, and it kind of feels like Ben Rhodes just hasn't been running as good.
Yeah, no, I would agree. He just seems a bit off. So I think it's probably safe to say Ben Rhodes not on your fantasy team for this week.
He is not. But leading it off is the guy I picked to win the race, Zane Smith, 11,000. He does have the most fantasy points per race this year. He won at Dover back in 2020, which is a concrete track. I already mentioned that. And again, I already mentioned finished fourth in this race last year. And the team he's on, I think that isn't something we mentioned yet either. That team he's racing for is the team that finished second in this race last year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even, he's obviously not on the same team as he was last year, but it's not like this team that he's on now ran 15th last year. They
He had the
finished,
same equipment as the
they,
truck that won. So
yeah. So Ryan Priest is the second guy I have, 10,200. Don't really have a lot to say in terms of this race specifically. I already know he won it last year. But he has scored at least 40 fantasy points in every race this year, except for Charlotte, where he was in position to score definitely more than 40 fantasy points. And even with the incident with Carson Osavar, still scored 38 or 35.8. So still had done good enough with his 13th place finish there to get a good run. Another guy, or my third guy, someone we've already talked about, Ty Majeski, 9,200. Already mentioned that he has top five of the last 7 races, and even the other races that he doesn't, he did have a couple issues in. Next one, someone we actually have not mentioned yet. Just going back real quick to the entry list, it is a pretty stacked in terms of number of cars, trucks at least. Entry list 41 trucks, 5 trucks go home. Some names that aren't necessary. This could have changed. This is what was posted on JSki before. Easily could change since then. Trucks could have dropped off. But some names on here we have not seen a ton of this year. Clay Greenfield. I think based on options that I had, not that I picked her, but I believe Jennifer Jo Cobb is in this race, which I think is only the second or third race she's run this year. So, but someone else we haven't mentioned that is part-time this year, Todd Bodine, 7,000. Had at least 21 fantasy points in every race, and 34 fantasy points in every race, except for the first one at Las Vegas where he spun, and he does have some experience here. So not that it's super applicable, but he at least knows generally how the track will drive. So, and I've used him at every race since that Vegas race, so I'm gonna continue to use him.
Mhm.
I mean, if he just gets the top 15, which we know he's capable of, he'll get the points there. Uh, the fifth guy, well, the sixth guy, I'll just say Jesse Little. We have him almost every week.
Mhm.
So 25 plus fantasy points in 5 of the 8 races, and at 5,300, I'll take that anytime. The other guy, though, is a little bit more than Jesse Little, but wanted to. He's the surprise guy here. Jack Wood. He has 3 straight races of 36 points or more, and he finished 11th in this race last year, which is his second best career finish. So I think it's been a little bit of an uptick. A good track for him. And if he scored me 36 points off of 6,600, I'd gladly take that.
That's fair. So just a quick recap. What were your 6 guys again?
Zane Smith, Ryan Priest, Ty Majeski, Todd Bodine, Jack Wood, Jesse Little.
Okay, so we have 4 of the four of the same guys on our teams.
Based on what we said, I'm not shocked by that.
No.
I'm going to assume. I want to take a guess real quick.
Yeah.
Zane Smith, Ryan Priest.
Yes.
Jesse Little.
Yes.
I'm going to go Todd Bodine.
It is Todd Bodine, and I will get into that here in a second. So, obviously, I pick Ryan Priest to win the race. That's why he's on my team. I like Zane Smith as well. You know, I was leaning in a little that way too, but I'm going with my guy in Priest for this race. Zane Smith, though, since I could have more than one of them when it comes to a fantasy team, is also on there. Obviously, Jesse Little, as you already mentioned, that's kind of our budget hero guy in the truck series. 5,300, can't go wrong with there. I will give you the other 2 before I get into Todd Bodine, because I do have a little bit of stats to actually back up picking him here for this race. First off, we're going with Tanner Gray. He needs a good race. The equipment is definitely here. From a fantasy standpoint, do I expect him to go out there and contend for the win? No. But just to kind of stay afloat in the playoff race, he's at the very least got to come out here, get a top 15, probably more so a top 10. But the equipment's there, like I said. So, in my opinion, he has no excuse to get a solid finish. And for the sake of fantasy, I think it's worth risking it here and using him on this team. Next up, Grant Enfinger at 8,700.
Yeah.
Pretty solid. Obviously, we already stated he ran good in this race last year. The team, something's up with GMS. I think they probably just spread themselves a little too thin, especially with 2 cup cars this year.
It's just funny because the cup cars are running, I think, better than any of us expected.
Right. I think it's taking a hit on the truck team. That's all.
It's funny, like you see that. No, I agree 100%. Yeah. And you see like Colleague, which are running even worse than I expected in the Cup Series, but also running worse than I expected in the Xfinity Series. But I mean, they have the same alliance with RCR. So.
I think what helps with GMS is like Colleague, while they ran part-time last year, that was really from scratch. GMS bought into Petty. Like, they had a new car, but they have a base.
That is true.
I think that definitely helps them there. But Enfinger, solid driver. Again, given that it's fantasy, he had some good, success in this race last year. 8,700 was really just the best available when I was going through the team, because I had Todd Bodine pegged before I even had Grant Enfinger, and here's why. Todd Bodine, when you remove truck tracks that he only ran 1 race at, so North Wilkesboro and Topeka, Nashville is his 7th best average finish. He ran here 9 times, 1 win, 5 top 5s, 7 top 10s, 2 poles, led 194 out of the 1355 laps that he completed. Obviously, Todd Bodine is not what he was when he was running at Nashville before, but historically, he's pretty good here. And we've seen him put together some solid runs.
And I think something else is just concrete doesn't change as much as asphalt does.
Mm-hmm.
So this track is still going to be far more comparable to when he ran on it than, say, Vegas or Texas were. I mean, Texas 100%. Mm-hmm. But then, say, like Vegas is, or other track, I don't remember where else, Darlington maybe, which are going to age, and concrete doesn't quite age like that.
Yeah.
So I liked it before, but I definitely like it even more now.
Yes. Unrelated to Todd Bodine, just scrolling through here, his 2nd best track in the truck series in terms of average finish in 9 starts, Daytona. That is very impressive.
He was. I remember he was always running near the front at Daytona. So it's funny with like Daytona and Talladega, not always the same for everybody. but it's just you have those guys, a couple of them middle average. It's like their top track, and then for most of the other guys, it's their worst track in terms of average finish. And
Yeah.
it's just funny how that winds up working out. Like we talk a lot about luck, but there is a lot more than luck involved in these tracks and how some of these people keep it clean. Like the fact that like in the 500, Denny had never had a DNF
This year.
before
Yeah.
this year, and had like I don't remember how many in a row it was of like top tens, but it's ridiculous. And at a certain point, it's not luck anymore. Like obviously, you have to have a little bit of luck because things are out of your control, but a lot of racing is making your own luck, and to me, that's just putting yourself in good position.
Yeah,
And
I
we
did
see it
that.
in terms of guys winning races, and then also just in terms of people staying clean at plate tracks.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's our teams. I think we're pretty similar boat. So maybe we'll win some money with those, or we'll be scratching our heads after the race on Friday night. Moving on to the Xfinity Series, a big difference between this race this year and last year. No Kyle Busch. So he dominated this race last year, leading 122 of 189 laps. Really opens the door for somebody else to potentially get in here and steal this one. Though there is a pretty big Cup name in this race in Tyler Reddick, who already has a win in that 48 car. So does that kind of sway any of your picks for this one?
No,
No.
Tyler Reddick is not my pick for this one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm gonna go with a guy that wasn't as good as Kyle was last year, but led laps, was probably the second best car, and also another guy that's pretty good at Dover, and that's Justin Allgaier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Uh,
a solid one right there.
just, I mean, he's not quite there yet with the wins, but in terms of overall performance, at least when they finish the races, has been one of, if not his best seasons in a while. Led 11 laps last year, which isn't a lot, but when Kyle leads 122 and Austin Cindric leads 53, not a lot of laps left for other people to lead. Neither of those guys in this race. I did look at Reddick a little bit, but this isn't a track that like I feel is great for him and for his driving style to begin with, which is why I've stayed away from him.
Yeah, I mean, Reddick is tempting just because I don't know. It's an RCR car. Obviously, he's the only Cup guy in the race, which also, when you look at it, it kind of makes you go, "Oh man!" Like it's solid pick. It's very tempting. Very tempting. There is a couple people on here that I have my eyes on. Josh
Real quick,
Berry being one.
I was gonna say I don't know that I ever said what Justin Allgaier's odds were, but
Oh,
plus
what,
500s.
what are
Plus
they? What are the odds?
plus 500, same as Josh Berry's, who was the other guy that I was deciding between.
Mm-hmm. So
Continue.
again, it's kind of one of those funny ones, right? Where like, man, sometimes things they kind of just like line up and they work out. Similar with like what I was saying with Matt DiBenedetto, and this person did show a lot of speed at Dover. But it was Brad Keselowski's 29th start, it looks like, with Junior Motorsports when he got his first career win, which was at Nashville in 2008. And it looks like this is going to be his 33rd start. So just missing that to get the complete comparison, which would have been awesome. Actually, no, because he did run a couple races last year for another team. Oh man, if this checks out to 29, I'm gonna lose my mind, but I don't think so. No, he only ran one last year, not in JRM in the Xfinity Series. So this will be his 32nd start with Junior Motorsports. Sam Mayer, book it. He's gonna get the win. First career win at Nashville on Saturday. It's gonna happen. This is where it's finally gonna happen. The one car to victory lane.
Sam Mayer is definitely going to crash in DNF now.
No, he's definitely gonna win this race. Definitely gonna win this race. It's his time. It's his time.
I mean, I hope so. I hope so. I think I'm not hidden. I root for him every week. Do usually pick him every week. He is just out. He's done good enough now that he's unlikely to ever be able to be a value pick anytime soon. I certainly would not be surprised. I do feel like this is going to be another, which is not shouldn't shock anyone, but another JRM dominated race. We just haven't, outside of when the Cup guys drop down and obviously like road courses, just really haven't seen anyone be able to take the fight to them.
No.
It's the short tracks, and I imagine we might see that when we come back to Martinsville and do they go back to Richmond? I know the Cup cars do, but I don't remember if the Xfinity cars do.
Did they race there in the spring, or was that I think it's only the trucks when they go back.
When they go back to Martinsville and maybe Bristol, we might see someone be able to take the fight to them, because that's really been the only tracks we've seen it really, other than like obviously plate tracks and road courses, since like Las Vegas or Phoenix. Which one was first?
Vegas was first, but I mean, they still let a lot in that race.
Yeah, they let a lot in that race, and Ty Gibbs kind of came out of nowhere. Phoenix, obviously, Noah Gragson led a lot, but Brandon Jones was very strong in that race. So I do think this will be another JRM dominated race. But I don't think it'll be. I don't. Noah's great, and I expect Noah to win more races. But just we've seen more speed out of Barry and Allgaier in particular at like a Dover than we really have of Gragson. Gragson had a good run at Dover, obviously, but Mayer, just like I said, just a little bit too rich to be able to fit into my value picks. Speaking of the value picks, are you going to take the guy I think you're going to take?
I don't know.
Well, I'm letting you go first, is my point.
Man, for value picks, if it's Ryan Preece, I'm not. So if you're thinking I was going to take Ryan Preece,
then I'll take Ryan Preece, just because I don't. There's not a lot of them here. The other one I had, just because Preece did run at Texas, I think Preece was basically the only car that wasn't a JRM car or Tyler Reddick that had any kind of speed that could compete. So here, 1,500 of the value guys, I like him the most. The other guy I had, and obviously feel free to pick him if you want, but Austin Hill, he ran good here in this race for Hattori last year, finishing 9th. Obviously, I think that RCR even now better than Hattori was then. I did have Sheldon Creed there just because he's gonna have to get a win to make it in. I literally, this feels crazy. He could be racing for his career.
I mean, we touched up on that in the last episode.
I mean, I certainly think he's racing for this ride, but just with the plethora of talent that's down there, it could be for his career. I probably would think he's probably got a good shot at getting some truck ride. Hasn't really burned bridges like I feel like Moffitt has. I think Moffitt's career is effectively done. But I think at this point, if you're Creed and he has talent, we know he has talent, but I think if he ends up back in the truck series, that's it. I don't think there is any path forward after that. So he's got to get something to happen. No guarantee, even if he misses the playoffs, that he honestly loses this ride. But it's not like years past where a guy he had funding and that could survive for a while. Even with the funding he had, Jerem could have run a 5th car, but that's the only reason he might have had a ride if he wanted to continue to have one. Because there's just so much, the most talent over in terms of broad numbers that I think we've had in the lower 2 series in a long time.
Yeah.
A long time. So Creed's going to have to win at some point, but just because of his finish, I initially had Austin Hill in the spot, but that's just because I thought you were going to take Preece.
Nope. There is another guy, because Preece at plus 1,500, solid pick. Again, he ran good in this equipment earlier in this year, so I think when he's in it, it's more of a Stuart Haas, prepped and backed car.
Well, literally, I'm pretty sure it's a Chevy at other points.
Yeah.
Because I think I remember, I don't know that it happened on this entry blank, but the last race, When he was first listed, it was initially listed as a Chevy just because they didn't change that on the entry blank. So
Right.
like it literally is a different car when he's in it.
So, who I am looking at, somebody that had a top 10 in this race last year, had a solid driver rating of an 81.1, which for his standards is actually probably pretty good, at least at the time. Has cooled off a bit from how he's running earlier in the year,
Not
but we're
entirely his
gonna.
fault.
Yeah, not entirely his fault if we're thinking of the same person. We probably are. That's Riley Herbst. Was that who you thought we're thinking I was going with?
Well, that I mean, when I looked at the top 10 from last year, it's really the
Yeah,
only name on here. I think it
yeah,
might be other than Hill. It might be the only name on here that's even 1,500 or more. Like, oh no, Hemrick, I think it's too. But I mean, the fact that Hemrick has higher odds than Austin Hill is kind of crazy to me. Just
hmm
being honest. Although Hemrick actually did not get a top 10 last year.
yeah. But Riley Herbst at plus 5,000 in a race where he did get a top 10 at last year, kind of hard to pass up in terms of value. So we'll put a little bit of money on him. Maybe he can make something happen. I have one first time winner as my, legitimate pick. So why not throw another one in there as the dark horse? Not the first time I've picked Riley Herbst in this spot. So Riley Herbst plus 5,000. That's my, dark horse long shot pick of the week for this race.
Yeah, he certainly. It's always weird, right? So he was on a pretty good streak and then had his issues at Charlotte, and then goes and has issues at Portland, and then you take 2 weeks off. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest. I could see it working both ways. But I mean, based on where he had ran before that, it's not a bad pick. He was that guy. It's not the first time one of us picked him this year because he has shown some speed in the Xfinity series. There's just not a lot of value picks. So
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think Herbst at 5,000. I certainly think Herbst is more likely to win than Landon Castle at 4,000. Honestly, probably than even Sheldon Creed. Just Sheldon Creed has to get something done. So at that point, you're kind of just betting on the borderline kamikaze factor.
Yeah, he's got to do something. I mean, at least there's a little bit more time in the Xfinity series than the Truck
There's
series.
still effectively a dumb amount of time left.
Yeah, so he's got time, but they got to figure it out quick. Looking at the driver props, a few more than the Truck series here for the Xfinity series. So, what are a couple that you're looking at?
Well, I like Allgaier over Gregson. This track just fits Allgaier's style better. They're both at a minus 110. Track just fits Allgaier's style better, and I picked him to win the race. So that's my pick, Allgaier over Gregson.
All right.
Do you want me to take one, or do you want me to give my second one?
Let's go with your second one.
Second one, I have Josh Berry over Ty Gibbs.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Berry minus 120, Ty Gibbs plus 100. Just Sharon's just been better, and that includes Josh Berry over the last couple months. And this is a track Josh Berry finished fourth at last year. I think this might have been his last race last year.
No,
before
Sam Mayer got the 8.
Before Sam Mayer, yeah.
Yeah, it might have been. I can't remember for sure. It's a little hard to remember that because then he got a bunch of races with Michael Annett getting hurt, and I think he ran some more.
Well, he ran some from
right
for Jordan Anderson. So, but I mean, Josh Berry's honestly probably like I think that Josh Berry and Justin Allgaier are a lot closer to Noah Gragson and Ty Gibbs than people feel like, and I think there's a legitimate argument Ty Gibbs is fourth on that list. Probably still ahead of Allmendinger at a normal oval just because of college struggles. But I do like Josh Berry over Ty Gibbs.
Yeah,
I don't know if you gave your pick at either of those, so if you want to give them.
Well, yes, so for those two, I'm also going with Allgaier. Gregson really didn't click with me this week. I mean, I don't think we even mentioned him in terms of the favorites.
I literally only mentioned him in that it just isn't his kind. It doesn't feel like his kind of track.
He's the overall favorite to win this race at plus 450, and I don't think any of us are going near him. So I'm definitely going Allgaier there, and I'm also going Josh Berry over Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs really feels like he's kind of just lost something since Martinsville.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have his page pulled up. I don't know if the stats back that up, but he definitely feels like he's taken a step back. Maybe that's just because Junior Motorsports has really been putting it on everyone, but it hasn't really been a great last 2 months or
Well,
so
even
for Ty
even
Gibbs.
like last week, or it's not last week at this point, 2 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
or 3 weeks ago, whatever it winds up being with Portland, a race he could have won, just all kinds of nonsense he got involved in. Um, Outside of that race, since Martinsville, he's only led 24 laps across Dega, Dover, Darlington, Texas, and Charlotte. And I mean, the other one, Dega, he wrecked a good chunk of the field. Like, that was all him.
Mm-hmm.
Darlington finished 18th. Or sorry, not 18th, 16th. The other track, third at Dover, second at Charlotte. I don't remember if anything happened at Texas, but he finished 12th there. But he still, like, he definitely does, even other than Richmond, even his wins earlier this year, like, came out of nowhere to win them.
Mm-hmm.
Only led 6 laps at Vegas, 1 lap at Atlanta. Dominated Richmond, and if he wasn't Ty Gibbs, probably would have won Martinsville. I guess didn't dominate Richmond because he had to move his teammate out of the way, and by that I mean run him off the wall. And if he wasn't Ty Gibbs, has a chance he might have won Martinsville, though, just because I don't know how aggressive people are with him if he's not Ty Gibbs. So that's it. Like, if you're, it just gets harder and harder to win races when you have the reputation he has. If you can't just go out and take him, because people will move you.
Yeah.
But I definitely agree. He's definitely lost a step, it feels like.
Yeah, he's definitely behind at least the bare minimum the Junior Motorsports guys.
Yeah, he's probably like on. Like, I would probably guess he's more likely to win a race than, say, Allmendinger. But Allmendinger's going to average more points in a race than Gibbs.
As for my picks, first one, not really a fan of the odds, just given the team, even though the equipment's good. But give me Ryan Preece at -130 over Daniel Hemrick at +110. If the car
I
holds
will.
up, yeah.
I agree. I agree.
If, if the
I
car
don't
holds
love
up,
the
I
odds,
like
and the
it.
odds reflect your general feeling about it. Because if these were any closer, this would probably be my slam dunk one. But
Yeah,
I
not
definitely agree. Preece over Hemrick.
like I was saying, not a fan of the odds, but we're still going to take it. Priest over Hemrick. Next one, maybe a little bit of a surprise. Trevor Bayne at +105 over Tyler Reddick. Bayne actually, when you just look at the average finish, not so great here. It's around 17th in his 5 starts at Nashville, but 2 of those races he wrecked out.
And I was gonna say, honestly, as crazy as this feels since he was out of the car so long, feels like just a different driver than he
Yeah.
was, a decade ago.
Yeah, so he has, like I was saying, 5 races here at Nashville. Has started in the top 10 in all of them. And this is between 2009 and 2011. There's a lot of Cup guys in some of these races. So starts here, 2nd, 10th, 3rd, 2nd, 7th. His finishes, when you remove the 28th and 32nd where he did crash out, 12th, 6th, and 9th. And then just to back it up, too, in terms of, these faster, bigger concrete tracks, in 7 starts at Dover, he has an average finish of 9.3. So he's pretty solid, in my opinion, here. And if he doesn't have any problems, he's almost a lock for a top 10, it feels like. Definitely for a top 10 starting spot.
I think he's already, like, regardless of the stats,
given the equipment he's into, he's
probably
probably a lock for a top 10.
But
Yeah. But just as, a driver, and you're right, like, that was 10 years ago, it feels like maybe he's recharged, maybe he doesn't have the pressure on him that comes with possibly winning a Daytona 500 in your second start. So, yeah, Trevor Bayne, +105, you're getting better than even money there. I think it's a pretty solid pick, even if it is against Tyler Reddick.
Yeah, I'd also go Bayne over Reddick. Which of the 4 we discussed is your favorite?
Honestly, I really like Bayne over Tyler Reddick. I think that one is my favorite. Close second, though, to Josh Berry over Ty Gibbs.
Josh Berry over Ty Gibbs is your favorite, or Bayne over Reddick is your favorite?
No, Bayne over Reddick is close second to Berry. Like, Berry over Gibbs is my number 2. It's close.
Oh.
It's
Okay.
close. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
then Bane Reddick is in a close second to.
It sounded right when it came out of my mouth. I'm gonna have to.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yes,
All
no,
right.
no. Bane over
So
Reddick is the favorite for me. Yes.
glad we mentioned Bane. We meant like we do have another run of Jeffrey Earnhardt in that Sam Hunt car. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. Um, we also have Ryan Ellis and Seven Parsons in their Alpha Prime racing car, and Parker Retzlaff in I believe it's a Sieg car. Kyle Weatherman in the Abuji car, which he's ran good in. Natalie Decker DNQing probably.
Hopefully. I
So
don't
I
need to
mean,
see her go like 10 laps down in a 200 lap race. Not even.
so looking over at the fantasy team, I did, and but I feel like I've done this a lot this year. It hasn't always worked out, but did go pretty JRM heavy. Won't talk too much about him just because we've talked about him already so much. But Josh Berry, Justin Allgaier, Sam Mayer, all have had good runs at Dover. I do think Dover and Darlington are probably Allgaier's two best tracks. Maybe Phoenix, but I think Dover and Darlington probably take the cake in that one. And Josh Berry and Allgaier went toe to toe at Dover this year, and then last year over second. I believe Cendric won that race. So, and Sam Mayer's been very consistent when he hasn't had issues. Top fives every race, dating back to Coda, with the exception of Portland, which was pure chaos. I loved it, but don't think they should go back there. But that's just more to do with the location than the track itself. And Talladega, which is Talladega. So, fourth guy I have here, someone I mentioned is probably doomed his career, but has had a decent run lately. Brett Moffitt, 6,900. He was the last guy I put on this team when I put everyone else on here, and just picked. He's had that area, I think, the most speed lately. Top 13 in 4 of the last 6 races, which is pretty solid in that car. Fifth guy, our usual pick, Ryan Ellis, 6,200. I was close between him and Parsons, who's in the 45 for Alpha Prime, but I feel like Ryan Ellis has done a little bit better in that car. Parsons has been very solid since he started running in that car a month and a half ago, but they're pretty close in price, and Ellis just is a little bit better. And then the guy that I think is the steal based on what he's done, Parker Retzlaff, 5,900. Outside of a fuel pump issue in his first race, has 3 finishes in the top 17, average of 13th place finish. It's very solid for that car. And that's right around where Sieg runs, maybe a little bit behind him, but better than where Kyle Sieg runs and better than the other guys that are in this car run. So that's my team. Josh Berry, Justin Allgaier, Sam Mayer, Brett Moffitt, Ryan Ellis, Parker Retzlaff.
All right. So I'm going to be honest. Like, I did my team. It's probably the one that I was trying to do the quickest because I was running late. So I did some looking over. I did do some retooling on it. I also have Retzlaff on my team at 5,900. The speed he's shown in that car. Again, that second seed car, sometimes the quality of it's just not there. So that is a little
honestly it's weird because it's kind of almost the third seed car.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah. I guess you're right. It is like more the third one, but just I don't know. It worries me a little bit because he has had some bad luck when he's driven that.
Only one race where he had issues.
Maybe I'm thinking more of Kyle Sieg too. Feels like one of them.
I think the issue is Kyle Sieg just isn't good.
Well, I think Kyle Sieg's better than Natalie Decker.
Well, that's low bar. Hey, Natalie Decker, not the worst driver maybe in this race, not in the series.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
As sad as it is, I would take Natalie Decker over Jesse Iwuji.
I probably would too. I might just take Jesse Iwuji because he spun out Ty Gibbs. But I'm going to go Retzlaff at 5,900. I'm also going to go Ryan Ellis at 6,200. Not a surprise there. Maybe a little bit of a surprise. Jeremy Clements, 6,400. Did finish 11th in this race last year.
Yeah, I looked at that and I thought about it, but they've just been so much slower than they were last year. He
Would
was
agree.
right there because I could afford him. I could have afforded him instead of Moffitt, but just didn't feel it.
Yeah,
They've been very disappointing this year.
it's that one is the one that's really a salary one where it's kind of like what's left because I'm at the limit. I have nothing remaining, and that's because I was moving stuff around to get this guy, and that's Trevor Bain at 9,700. So I really, it's just I think he's gonna have a pretty strong run. I really do. And now as I'm moving people around a little bit more to free up some more money, because I am just not a fan of this team all together right now. We're gonna have Josh Berry at 11,000, and then we're also gonna have Sam Mayer at 9,200, which will also allow me to drop. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Why am I drawing a blank?
Jeremy
Probably
Clemens.
because I hate this team. Yes, Jeremy Clemens. Allows me to drop Jeremy Clemens, and we're still going to take a risk here because we're going to go with Sheldon Creed because he needs something
Yeah,
to
I mean, it's
happen.
definitely a risk, but I agree with that premise.
Needs
I
something to
I don't think it's
happen.
the craziest bet because they have speed, maybe not race winning speed, but they got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
They got to do something. Like Sieg's issues that he had didn't really have too many. Did slip back a little bit at the end of Portland, but his issues at Texas and Charlotte should have blown the door wide open for Creed, and instead, I'm pretty sure Creed lost ground. Obviously, had issues as well, but that's exactly my point.
Yeah. So, just to sum it up, because I can't make up my mind and like to do things on the fly sometime, my team here, Parker Redslav, Ryan Ellis, Sheldon Creed, Sam Mayer, Trevor Bain, and Josh Berry. I like that a lot more than what I initially had for the Xfinity series, so we're just going to roll with that. I feel a lot more comfortable with that one, that is for sure. I know one that I felt pretty good with, pretty much probably even stronger than my Cup Series, or my Truck Series team is the Cup Series. We'll get to that in a second because first we got to go through the odds on the Cup Series. And shocker, who is the favorite? But it is the driver who won this race last year, Kyle Larson, plus 450.
Dominated this race
Yeah,
last year.
yeah,
Just
dominated.
straight up dominated.
Mm-hmm.
As is usual in the Cup Series, there are no go or go homers. 36 cars entered, pretty standard, especially for tracks that aren't like plate tracks or road courses. But yes, I mean, Kyle Larson, the heavy favorite, not at all shocking. Not my pick to win. I'm picking Chase Elliott.
You're picking Chase Elliott. I like not a bad pick. He ran good at Dover, so
Ran good at Dover, won the race. Obviously, didn't necessarily have the best car, but had a top 3-4 car. Won a stage last year. You don't see it if you look at it. Try to look it up because they were dumb and had 4 loose lug nuts and got DQ'd and lost the stage win, but did win the stage last year. Was running top 5-ish most of the day up until the end where that wheel got loose, and rather than pit, they just slowed way down, finished like 18th. Didn't matter because they got DQ'd. So
threw away a playoff point in the process.
Yep, it was dumb. It was really dumb.
Really, one of the dumber things I've seen a team do.
It was one thing if you're just throwing away the points themselves, just because like you think you don't have 4, but the playoff point is obviously very important. They weren't gonna. I mean, they were. I think they wound up finishing the regular season 3rd in points, which was the best they were going to finish anyway, with the seasons that Hamlin and Larson had last year. But it was dumb. It was very dumb. It was very, very, very dumb. It was. I mean, the entire rule existed so that teams would be smart and not do that because it's such a steep penalty. Why would you do it? And then they did it. But yeah, Chase Elliott plus 800. Honestly, for Chase, was a pretty solid odd. So, my pick. Who's yours?
I'm going with the other guy at plus 800. First time winner on the season, Ross Chastain.
He was the other guy I had down here. I mean, I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, so Ross in this race last year, probably his best race with Ganassi. It's similar logic to what you used with Zane Smith in the
literally
Truck Series.
Have that note down for Chastain. Probably best race last year.
Yeah, it was probably his best race last year. Ran 81.7% of the laps in the top 15, had a driver rating of 106, which looks like fifth best out of everybody. One of 5 drivers over 100. He's with a better team this year. I mean, that simply comes down to that. He's with a better team. He ran good here last year. That really just sums it up. I'm a little worried with the new tech process that NASCAR has this week. It's always interesting when they do stuff like that, a new scanner for the underbody of the car. There is a chance maybe Trackhouse might have been doing something there, and this
Yeah,
could take
no
away an
matter what, if
advantage.
anyone has an off weekend, that's all that Reddit will be talking about.
Yes, that's all anyone's going to be
how things
talking
were caught.
about.
I mean, I will say a similar thing happened last year. Maybe it was after this race. Chevy got caught with something last year, and then
when did they go to Atlanta? Because that was the first race with it, and then Hendrick was just off that race.
I was going to say it was Atlanta. They go to Atlanta. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, look, they found something." And then after that, they didn't win races for a minute, but they were fine.
Now, my favorite one was back in 2017, where it's pretty obvious who complained. Cough, cough, Toyota, because it sounded like Ford and Chevy were doing it, where they were messing with the splitters. And after that rule change went into effect, Ford and Chevy only won, it looks like, 4 races the rest of the year. One of them was Michigan, which Truex had that race won until a late yellow, and Kyle Larson got him on the restart. The other one, or another one of the ones that Chevy won after that, was Kyle Larson at Richmond, which I think I mentioned that in our rant about Texas and just dumb finishes and what NASCAR's done to manipulate races, where they threw a yellow for Derek Cope not even brushing the wall. Kyle Larson's team got him off pit road first, and then Truex got wrecked. So that's 2 that should have went to Truex and Toyota. The other 2 races were, actually there was a 5th one at Texas, which I was probably the only outlier in all this. But the other 2 that I saw first, Talladega, which was a flustercluck, as they would say, which was won by Brad Keselowski, and I think there was only like 7 cars left at the end of the race. And then Indianapolis, which was run by Casey Kane, which was also a mess. And that race ended because of darkness. Again, Harvick did win a race at Texas after that. That's probably the only real legit one. Toyota dominated that season after that rule change. That's one where they made a change, and I think it drastically affected the whole outcome of the season. Like you mentioned, not so much with Hendrick. They might have slowed down a little bit. But as you always say, they tend to slow down in the middle of the year always.
I don't know, man. They just screw around now. Like,
yeah, that's probably true, especially with Chad just overseeing everything.
They get their guys in like solid playoff contention as best they can, and then they just go and do whatever they want. And I mean, all their guys have wins, and they're all in the top 10 in points, so they're all in solid, locked in, effectively playoff contention. So.
But yeah, back to Ross. Like it was his best race last year with Ganassi. He's with a better team. Easy pick in my opinion. Value. What's your value guy?
You know who my value guy is.
I don't know, do I? I'm pretty bad when it comes to games like this.
Yeah, but I've been talking this race and this driver up for like 2 months. Plus 6,000, yeah. Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Yeah.
Usually once a year has like a really crazy race. You go, where did that come from? Last year it was here. Obviously this year he kind of already had that in Dover, but this year he's also ran better than we've really ever seen him run. Ran good last year, run good, had some issues last couple weeks, but one of them was a road course, one of them was Gateway, so one of them was the 600, which was a chaos race. But I like Stenhouse, especially at plus 6,000 with the track, and he's with this team, shown some speed at, which they had not really shown speed very many places before this year.
That's a good one. I'm not surprised. I don't know if you saw this person, and maybe you would have picked him if you didn't have your heart set on Stenhouse. Mine at plus 20,000. Chris freaking Bushner. The dude just had his best race of his career. He got the pole at Dover. He ran solid that race too. It's the only really comparison to Nashville in terms of the size and the track surface. I think DraftKings missed the boat here. This is absolutely insane to get somebody coming off of a race he did who showed speed at a somewhat similar track already, plus 20,000. Nuts, nuts. Cole Custer, who sucks. He's awful. He would not have a ride right now if his dad did not work for the team that he works for. Plus 15,000. I don't know what the odds makers are doing here. If you want somebody, a deep value pick who has showed speed, maybe could actually do something like it's Chris Buescher. I'm sure you feel the same way now that I'm going off. Your thoughts on that one?
Well, I mean, 20,000 is really. I would still pick Stenhouse. I don't necessarily like Stenhouse more, but I'm just, but I mean, not just Cole Custer. Brad, I love Brad, but Brad 8,000, Chris Buescher at 20,000, pretty ridiculous. Chris Buescher finished like 8th at Dover as well. So, not just is he coming off of the best race of his career.
Top 10 at Dover after he started up the pole.
But top 10 on Dover, starting on the pole, and just lately has had among the most speed he's had. Like even at 600, he was running in or near the top 10 when he went tumbling.
Yeah, at Charlotte. Mm-hmm.
So they've had a lot of speed lately. So yeah, I mean Chris Buescher 20,000 is pretty ridiculous. I even think with the speed that they've had as well, Michael McDowell 50,000 is also up there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I certainly would take Michael McDowell. As sad as this is for him, would easily take Michael McDowell over Cole Custer at the same odds.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone over 3 times better paying odds for Michael McDowell. So.
Also go a little bit deeper with Chris Buescher. Plus,
I thought you were going to say deeper than 20,000.
No.
Deep enough.
Yeah, we've dug the hole. We're hitting possible gold here, but plus 20,000 for a top 5, even plus 500 for a top 10. It's not often that you get odds like that for somebody who I think you can make a case could get a top 10 finish. So there's a lot of value in Chris Buescher in a lot of different bets this week.
Put money on him already?
I did.
Okay, good.
I'm not forgetting that one. We're not coming in here on whatever day the next episode comes out and like, oh well, Chris Buescher won. How much money did you win, Brandon? I go 0.
But no, I mean I agree. That's 20,000. 20,000 is ridiculous for Chris Buescher. I just don't. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
No. So
but,
I get him like. I get him being behind Brad because Brad is Brad, and I can see that be overlooked. Right? No,
not by twice as much.
The absolute disrespect to have him behind Cole Custer as well.
Like I think, looking at these other guys, I think the floor for Buescher here should have been 10K.
Yeah,
I think the absolute lowest he should have been when you compare him with the other drivers here, 10 absolute lowest.
That's the floor. Like if I'm making these odds, honestly, with how he ran at Dover, coming off the race that he had at Sonoma, I'd probably even put him ahead of Brad. I'd probably put him.
I think Brad's too high. I think Brad's too high is the thing. I'd probably put Brad at 10. And I'd feel comfortable with Buescher at 8 just because like Eric Jones is 8 at 8 too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
there's a good point with Jones there, but somewhere I'd probably have him slotted somewhere between plus 8,000 and plus 6,000, somewhere in that area. So plus 20,000, get your money on Chris Buescher. That's how I feel about that. Don't think I have to worry about Chris Buescher in. Well, actually, no. We're not going to do the head-to-head matchups because there's too damn many. We're going to go with group winners this week because that's a little bit more fun because it gives you a little bit more options to pick from. So
it's very hard for us to pick the same guy every time. So
well, at least in Group A we won't pick the same guy because we have both of our winners in that group. So that one's pretty easy right there. I'm going Ross Chastain. You're going Chase Elliott.
Group
there. That's
also,
over with.
And, well, I mean, also include Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch, just for the record.
You do want to throw that out there, even though we're not picking them. So, yeah,
I will say I would avoid Kyle Larson in this one, just based on the odds. I almost picked Kyle Busch to win this race. Mm-hmm. So Kyle Busch plus 290. Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott plus 310 versus Kyle Larson plus 180. I basically like all of them more than Larson with these
Yeah.
odds. And with just the speed we've seen from Larson. Like, he's not been slow, but I'd be pretty shocked if he went out and dominated this race like he did last year.
Yeah, no, I'd be shocked if he dominated the race for sure. Group B, we got Denny Hamlin plus 220, Ryan Blaney plus 280, Joey Logano plus 280, and Martin Truex Jr. plus 280. I'm going with Denny Hamlin.
This one was pretty hard for me. I went with just because he had a good run at Dover, although Denny certainly did too, but should have finished fourth at Dover if he didn't decide to basically wreck himself. I went with Truex here. Denny was close, but I went with Truex. He's a little bit better paying odds, and as crazy as it is, he needs a good run more than Denny does.
Yeah, no, especially with the winners. Like, man, if a Stenhouse or a Buescher like that wins, like Truex is probably really going to start to sweat.
Like when you look at the guys that were near the front last week or 2 weeks ago, Suarez winning was basically best case scenario because he was of that group the one most likely to win anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But it could have been a lot worse if a McDowell, a Bush, or even a Harvick, just based off of the speed they've shown, is that first guy across that line. Then it's a lot worse than Suarez. But Suarez, I mean, it's obviously most of the paths we've laid out, 16 winners includes like Truex winning, Blaney winning, and Bell winning. But at this point now, we get three winners that aren't Truex. One of them could be Blaney, one of them could be Bell, and then one of them is anyone else. We have both. I mean, Buescher's had speed. Stenhouse should run good here. Obviously, Reddick could win anywhere. Like suddenly now, a lot of pressure on Martin Truex Jr.
Yeah, Truex, he's got the value in this matchup, but I don't know where his head's at right now.
I agree.
So
I just liked him a little bit more. It was pretty close. I just liked him a little bit more than Denny. So it's the odds I went with Truex.
Yeah. I mean, outside of Sonoma, I like the speed that I've seen from Denny Hamlin over the last month, even if some of those cases he's wrecked himself. But I'm taking Denny in this matchup. Or group matchup. Group C, we have William Byron plus 200, Tyler Reddick plus 250, Christopher Bell plus 300, Alex Bowman plus 320. This is an easy one for me, and that's Christopher Bell. William Byron, since he's won Martinsville, he's kind of just been stagnant. That's even too nice. He's fallen off. Tyler Reddick, I can't trust him to finish races, and out of all of them, I think Alex Bowman's shown the least speed out of the four. And that basically just leaves Christopher Bell as the only guy that I like, because I'm just not feeling any of the other three here.
Yeah, I'm picking a bounce back race for Byron. Certainly should, like, the brain says Bell. Everything you said is true, but the heart, and I'm going with the heart, picks Byron.
Mm-hmm. So just going gut check.
Yeah.
Gut check on him. I mean,
he ran good. Obviously, not that it matters, and they're clearly off of their pace earlier from the year, but they ran good last year. Finished third. Finished fourth in stage 2. So they had speed. Just they have to get it righted, and even if I think Hendrick is messing around, I usually do better than Byron and Bowman have been finishing lately. So,
so that leaves one more group matchup one here. Kevin Harvick, the favorite at plus 230, Kurt Busch plus 260, Chase Briscoe at plus 260, and Daniel Suarez last race's winner, Daniel Suarez at plus 320. This one was a little tricky.
this one was easy for me.
Oh, it was easy for you?
Easy. Slam dunk, easy Daniel Suarez.
Daniel Suarez, it's not bad. I mean,
has had of these guys has had the most speed this year. Finished 7th in this race last year. Finished third in stage 1 in this race last year. I think technically finished 4th. I'm pretty sure stage 1 is the stage that Chase won, and is the best paying odds. The only guy on here that I would be inclined to take is Kurt. But other than that, I mean, with the odds, especially, Daniel Suarez slammed him.
So
For me,
Suarez did have a good finish here last year. His driver rating was a little bit further back from the finish. Only ran 59% of the laps in the top 15. I know there was some fuel mileage, I believe, at the end of the race. I don't think
I don't
that
know that
really.
there was a lot of fuel mileage talked about. I don't know that it actually.
Parsing was going really slow at the end. I mean, there were people saying that. I think maybe one person ran out of gas, but
I think Danny Pitt maybe.
Yeah. Just some strategy calls, some stuff like that. Trackhouse is obviously better this year. I'm gonna go with somebody that had a better performance in this race last year. Ran pretty good at Dover, and arguably coming off one of his best runs of the season 2 weeks ago at Sonoma. I'm going with a favorite in this one. I'm going with Kevin Harvick. That's somebody that needs something to happen, like some other people we've talked about in the other series. Maybe definitely not as drastic as say Sheldon Creed, who he just desperately needs something to happen. Harvick's in a interesting situation right now, just right outside of the playoff line. Eric Almirola did have a good race here last year, so that'll be interesting too. But Harvick needs something to happen again. Ran good at Dover, ran good 2 weeks ago at Sonoma, and was pretty solid here last year. I'm going with Kevin Harvick. Suarez is close. Chase Briscoe's close because he is Harvick's teammate. He's shown more speed. The only one that I was really out on is Kurt Busch because the speed's there, but I don't know what I'm getting every week from 2311. And then you got to worry about the pit crew and the team making mistakes, and I don't feel confident in him. He could very well go out there and finish fourth because we've seen him do that earlier in the year. But even though I'm a little worried about Harvick's playoff hopes, I'm picking him in this matchup.
I mean, he certainly showed more speed the last couple of weeks, but I like Suarez and I like the odds for Suarez.
I mean, it's not awful. The guy won. He won 2 weeks ago, so those are pretty good odds in a group matchup. So I can't fault you for going with them. And again, I think the only one it might shot Byron, or not Byron. Or was it? Yeah, Briscoe and Kurt. I feel like they're like kind of like the same thing. Where I don't know if I trust them or their team enough. Harvick, I think this feels like a race where he'll probably end up finishing 8th. He'll probably run 14th to 6th all day and come home 8th. So really, I think Suarez is probably the only one that I really feel like truly is going to be able to beat him. That I feel confident about, anyways. But we're still going with Kevin Harvick. Looking at the fantasy teams, I'm sure we probably have a lot of the same people again. But what's yours looking like right now?
Well, I have Chase. Won Dover, ran real well last year. Won stage 1 before they were dumb. 10,700. Ross 10,500. Top 5 at Dover, finished third. This was, like I already mentioned, not likely his best race last year. Martin Truex Jr. 9,700. I went full on the Truex train. I was going to get a good finish this week. Was in position to finish fourth at Dover before he just kind of, basically decided to wreck himself because he was mad that he couldn't get past Ross. Not surprising, Stenhouse, 7,100. Top 10 at Dover and finished second. And then this race last year ran in the top 5 for a good chunk of it before he finished, I believe, 7th. Already got someone we already talked about as well, Chris Buescher, 6,100. Has been on a hot streak lately in terms of his performance. Also finished 8th at Dover. And my closer here, someone I think is a steal based on his recent performance as well, was kind of with Buescher as well. Michael McDowell, 5,700. Finished 16th in this race last year, and this was the point where they weren't running that good anymore. And top 18 in, I believe it's 9 of his last 10 races. And for that team, that is pretty impressive. So they've similar to Buescher, coming off of what I think is the best. Obviously, he won a race as did Buescher before, but coming off of what was, I think, the best race of Michael McDowell's career.
Yeah,
which was also after a top 5 performance that Michael McDowell had at Gateway.
Mm-hmm.
in terms of his own career.
Right, right.
And that is a team. Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, Martin Truex Jr., Richie Stenhouse Jr., Chris Buescher, and Michael McDowell.
Yeah, we got a couple of the same people. Not surprising at all. I have Chris Buescher 6,100 again. My long shot pick to just outright win the race. I mean, 17 car too. If you look at what Zane Smith did at Gateway, they're they're going upwards. Like I think it's a fair point to say he probably
I mean,
should
that's
be ahead of
I,
Brad in
I
squad.
think
Yeah,
at 6,100, like a top 15 is
yeah,
probably going to be pretty solid. So,
yeah. I think a lot of people are probably going to have Buescher. So I don't know how well that's going to do you in the overall, standings. It might be a guy you have to look elsewhere just because he could be a high percentage play. But 6,100 for Chris Buescher. Also went the same route as you with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 7,100. Ran good here last year. Ran good at Dover. Pretty easy play there. Next up on my team, Eric Jones, 7,300. Not the best results in this race last year, finished 19th, but I think the Petty GMS team is better than Richard Petty Motorsports was a year ago. So,
debatable.
yeah. So, we're going with Eric Jones. Uh, Next three guys are three guys that I picked in the group matchups. Kevin Harvick, 8,500. Denny Hamlin, 10,200. And Ross Chastain, 10,500. Again, Denny and Harvick have in my group matchups. Ross, I do as well, and I have him to win the overall race. So, pretty easy for me to throw those guys in there. I think they're going to have solid days. Denny Hamlin, that could go either way. I think he'll have a solid showing speed wise, but whether he gets that finish or not, that might be a different story. But I feel pretty confident about this team as well. Truck Series team and the Cup Series, I feel pretty good about. Xfinity, I felt awful about until I started playing it around while we were doing this. So feel a little bit better there. And I think with the Cup Series too, there are a lot of guys. I almost feel like somebody is new working at DraftKings this week because there are a lot of different teams I think you can make with a lot of different plays. I feel some weeks you're kind of just locked in. I think this week's wide open from the fantasy side.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of value all over the place.
Yeah, for sure. But that's going to do it on the fantasy side. Any final thoughts? Anything we didn't talk about you want to touch up on?
Just parting shot, rest in peace to Bruton Smith. Controversial figure for sure, but it's no denying he changed NASCAR forever.
I would agree, and hopefully they could fix Texas for him because that track was SMI's baby. So hopefully they could fix that and not have to remove it from the schedule, which I don't think it's going to happen. I know when we did our schedule predictions and stuff, we both had it on there, but fix
I mean,
Texas.
I would be hard pressed to see it get all that long of a leash
Hmm.
if it continues to perform the way it does, especially especially with all the other intermediates are performing. So
Yeah. So yeah, but Bruton, like you said, like the sport wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for him. He's really, they did a lot of stuff. They paved the way. They've done a lot of good things with some of their tracks, and some like Texas, unfortunately. No, I don't feel like Texas was his fault. That was late enough in his career. He pretty much had already turned the reins over to that point to his son. So can't fault him for what's been going on down there at that track for the last couple of years. But it does stink that he did pass away today. Thoughts and prayers with everyone at SMI and Bruton's family. On a much more happier note, we get to go racing, and I'm sure we'll make a mention as we are at a track that SMI does own. So I'm sure they're going to do a lot of stuff over the weekend to honor him and what he's done for that company and the sport. We will be back after all the racing, Friday through Sunday. I know Nashville is a pretty pretty solid weekend last year. Cup race with Kyle Larson dominating. Maybe not the most exciting, but there was plenty of action between the other two races. I think with this car, we're going to see a pretty good show on Sunday as well. If you're going to the track, just stay cool. It's going to be a scorcher. And have fun getting water. I know that's going to be pretty tough, too, with the cooler policy that everybody keeps talking about there. So stay safe out there if you're going to the track. The rest of us are going to hopefully enjoy another good race on TV come Sunday. Until next time, guys, we will catch you later. Brandon Monroe here. Thanks for listening to the Bernie Breakdown. Remember to keep listening to us on your favorite podcasting platform. And remember to follow us at Bernie Breakdown on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and all of our other social media platforms.